Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Allie's Bookie Reads. I talk about books here on the YouTube platform. Today, my video is going to be my August wrap-up. I read 10 books in August, so let's get into it. So yes, I read 10 books in August, which is kind of a slow month for me. I usually typically do 12 to 15. I did start classes again. I am going back for my paralegal degree. I have 2 semesters plus an internship left, so I will be getting that in addition to my bachelor's and associates that I already have, so that I can work it in the law field. So I have been reading quite a bit of my course textbooks and doing quite a bit of homework. Plus I have classes Monday through Thursday, so I go to work at 6 in the morning and I don't get home until 9:30 at night, so it doesn't leave a lot of room during the week for me to actually read. So I've been cramming on the weekends, just getting some books in. I've been listening to audiobooks on my drive in and out of work. I typically supplement my audiobooks with what I'm already reading, so I'm not going to be stating like listen to this one on audiobook, because none of them I listened fully on audiobook. But let's just get into it. The first one I want to talk about is The Right Swipe by Alicia Rai. This book I read because I want to do a video here where I talk about modern romance. So I read a while ago Modern Romance by Aziz Ansari, where he talked a lot about our generation's dating patterns and how it's changing a lot from what our parents or our grandparents had. And so I read this because I wanted to talk a little bit about like how dating apps factor into that. The characters were believable. I wanted them to actually fall in love. This book was about an individual who created her own app, her own dating app, that was more women empowering. So you get blocked if you send nude pictures, and you can choose if you want, as the woman, you can choose if you want to message first or not. So there was that aspect. And then the guy in the book, his aunt, who's not actually related to him, but is like he grew up with her kind of a thing, he owns a very small portion of the company. And at the beginning of the book we found out that he swiped on her, or she swiped on him, and then he ghosted her. And so then they meet up in these interviews and have to reconcile their differences so that they can work together on something, and it was really, really good. I love me some hate to love stories. Next up, I read Class Mom and You've Been Volunteered by Lori Graham. Now, both of these were just kind of fluffy light reads. I really like reading like suburban mom drama. I loved that show on ABC, American Housewife, I think it was called, where the mom was just super dramatic, and it was about like the kids' lives and how the mom like weaseled her way into the drama. That's my kind of fluffy light book. I read them when my brain is just too overwhelmed with everything. Like right now I have a pretty stressful job along with classes, and sometimes I just need to unwind with something really light, fluffy, funny. And so I gave both of these 3 stars because they didn't do anything special. I didn't absolutely love them. I'm not going to be recommending them to everybody that I see, but they were good. They were exactly what I needed, and yeah. I also want to state that I gave The Right Swipe 4 stars. Next, I read the second book in the Millennium series, The Girl Who Played with Fire by Stieg Larsson. This was not as good as The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I did give this 4 stars, then I gave The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo 5 stars. This centered around the same characters. It centered around Lisbeth, and this time she's involved in a conspiracy, so they're doing research and background on her instead of her doing the research in the background. So I found that part really interesting. However, it just didn't suck me in like The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo did, and I don't know if that was because this was just too much for me this month. It wasn't easy enough to read and I just couldn't process it all, or what, but I didn't enjoy this as much. I'm hoping that I like the others in the series, because I think I have 4 more to read, and the 4th one will be released this month. So yeah, 4 stars to this. It was still really good. It just wasn't as good as The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. next up I have 3 of the 4 books that my neighbor let me borrow. I have One for the Money by Janet Ivankovich, The Body Farm by Patricia Cornwell, and Digital Fortress by Dan Brown. And now I will be doing a video based on these 3 plus the other one. I actually finished the other one in September, so it's not going to be included in my August wrap up, but I am going to be filming a video about these 4 books. So right now I'm just going to give you my star ratings, and you'll actually have to watch that video to see why I gave them the ratings that I did. One for the Money I gave 2 stars. The Body Farm I gave 4 stars, and Digital Fortress I gave 2 stars. And then I did read 3 more books that I've already passed off to Logan's mom, so I don't actually have physical copies of them here with me. The first one being All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr, which I gave 2 stars. I typically love World War II fiction, but this book just did not do it for me. I was bored the entire way through. I felt like it was doing a lot of telling me and not a lot of showing me, and as I've stated in a lot of videos, I don't like books that just constantly describe things. I don't care about descriptions of things. A little goes a long way for me, so it can have some description. I'm not talking that it has to be like all action all the time, something always has to be happening, because that's not it at all, and you'll find that out in the next book that I talk about. But it can't all be description. Literally nothing happened in the book, and it was written beautifully. The prose was really nice. That is why I gave it 2 stars. Even though I didn't like the story, I did like the way that it was written, but it was not the book for me. I do understand that there's definitely an audience for that type of book. I know a lot of people who love description writing and that beautiful prose, the very literary style, which is not my favorite thing. But in contrast to that, I also read The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt, which is very character-driven descriptions, which is the part of descriptions that I like. I can read a whole book where absolutely nothing happens except the characters talking about their lives and talking to each other and very vivid characterizations. That is what I really, really enjoy. I don't like setting descriptions or literary for the point of being literary, but the characters in The Goldfinch were absolutely incredible. I loved reading about them. I loved their background story. So The Goldfinch is about a character who steals a piece of artwork during a pretty significant, I think it was a terror attack. I may not be remembering that correctly. It may have been an earthquake, but I think it was some type of terror attack, like a bomb. And his mom passes away, but he stole this painting for her, and it's a painting of a goldfinch. And then we spend the whole book where he's going through, like, he starts out in the foster care system, and then one of his family friends adopts him, and then he ends up with his father, and his father passes away. And these are all, they're kind of spoilery elements, but they're not going to spoil the book for you if I say those things. There's a lot more that happens and the buildup of that. So yeah, I loved reading about this one specific character. It's why I like Stephen King's writing, because he does a lot of description, but it's a lot of character description. He really builds up his characters and his worlds so that you feel like you are there. And I don't know how to differentiate or explain the difference between what the descriptions in All the Light We Cannot See is and The Goldfinch, rather than just its characters, it's character driven versus like literary writing style description driven, if that makes sense. And it's not just literary style descriptions that I don't like either. I don't like fantasy because it's all about the world building, whereas Stephen King's world building is like enough to make you feel like you're there, and it's small town living, and fantasy is like we're creating an actual world that doesn't exist. Maybe it's realistic literary that I like, maybe something that I can personally relate to or see myself in. I don't know. I need to delve deeper in exactly what I like in books before I feel like I can actually touch on that. But I feel like I know myself really well, and I know when I'm gonna like a book and when I'm not, but I just can't put it into words or describe why I like that certain type of book. I'm getting better at it. I'm working on it. So then the last book I read is Lock Every Door by Riley Sagar, and this was the third Riley Sagar book I've read. I've also read Final Girls and The Last Time I Lied, and loved all of them. This one, Lock Every Door, was by far my favorite by him, and it was about this young adult, not teenager, she's probably in her early 20s, maybe mid 20s. She accepts a Craigslist ad to essentially watch over an apartment, and she has rules where she can't have guests, she has to stay the night, and you don't talk to the other guests about what's going on in the building. And so obviously it gets sinister, and living in this house or in this apartment style complex is not what she expected, and the twist at the end is so completely original. I've never read that twist before, and I love being thrown for a loop. Everybody knows, like, when I talk about a good thriller for me is like when I don't expect what's coming, because sometimes I can predict what's going to happen. So I feel like this came out of nowhere, but it's one of those came out of nowhere books where if I reread it knowing the ending, everything would lead up to that. It's not like thrown completely out of the blue. It's not like it just made up for the sake of throwing you off. There were clues and hints throughout the book that led up to what occurred, and I love that. I love being able to piece together and think about, oh yeah, and that, yeah. One of my biggest examples of a curve thrown out of nowhere that has no facts to back up, and this is not a book, so I'm going way off course here, but the show Gossip Girl, who ended up being Gossip Girl, there's literally no way that person could have been if you watch the show back. There's just no way. So it's stuff like that where there's nothing to back it up, and it just is shock for the sake of shock value. I don't particularly like that. That's not my reading style. Now, if I enjoy the book along the way, all up until the twist, like I did with You Will Know Me. You Will Know Me, I think it was called, by Alice. I'll put it up on the screen. I don't quite remember what it was called. So with that one, I loved the book. I loved the book literally up until the last 20 pages. I was going to give that one 5 stars just because the writing was so compelling. And then the twist was so ridiculous and so, like, there's literally no way that could have happened, that I ended up giving 2 stars, I think. So a twist, the ending can really make or break, because I loved the entire reading of that book and then I hated the ending. But I gave 5 stars to Lock Every Door. That was my book club read, and we haven't actually had book club. We had to move it because of my classes. We used to have it on Wednesdays, so now we're having it this upcoming Sunday. But since it is already September and I had to wrap up the book, I don't fully know the reviews. I know their Goodreads rating. One of my friends gave them a 4-star. Another one gave it a 5. So we will see what we think of that when we talk and discuss it. But anyways, that was my August wrap up, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye!